Welcome, dear brave listener. You're tuning in to Careful TV, and I'm truly grateful you're here. Whether you're tuning in during the day or late at night, thank you for choosing to spend a part of your time with me. If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and means more than you know. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, what brought you here, or even what kind of story you'd like to hear next. Your support keeps this channel going, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let's get into today's horror story. I was 23 the first time I drove that route alone at night. I just moved to a small town outside Flagstaff after finally landing a full-time teaching job. My family lived back in Mesa, so every few weekends I drive down for dinner, laundry, and to feel like a kid again for a night. My mom still packed me leftovers like I couldn't cook, and my dad always double-checked my tire pressure before I left. I didn't mind. It made the apartment feel less quiet when I got back. My name's Cassie, by the way. It was October, maybe a week before Halloween. The plan was to head back before it got too late, but dinner ran long, and then my mom pulled out this box of old photos, and suddenly it was almost 10:30. My dad offered to walk me out to the car, but I told him not to worry. It was barely a 2-hour drive and I'd done it dozens of times. The roads were familiar, even in the dark. Except that night, it wasn't just dark. It was raining. Not a heavy storm. Just that kind of cold desert drizzle that makes the pavement slick and your wipers squeaky no matter how new they are. I turned on a Highway 87 and settled into the drive, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on a full covered tray of baked ziti, still warm from the oven. I didn't see the truck at first. Not really. Just caught a flicker of red tail lights pulling out from the gravel lot near one of those roadside produce stands that only opens during the day. The big kind with the hand-painted signs and stacks of watermelons in wire cages. The semi looked like it had been parked there a while. Mud streaked the lower half of the cad, and its rear lights blinked unevenly like they had water damage. I slowed a little. The truck eased onto the highway just ahead of me, moving slow, like the driver wasn't in a rush. I figured they were being cautious in the rain. I backed off, gave him space. Nothing about it fell off at first. It was late. I was tired. I just wanted to get home. But then we hit a stretch of the road that split into 2 lanes, and the truck stayed in the middle. I gave a few seconds, thinking maybe the driver didn't realize. I flashed my brights once. No reaction. So I moved left to pass, nice and easy. I wasn't speeding, just trying to be polite. I got about even with the cab when he suddenly jerked his wheel to the left, enough that his tires grazed the line, separating our lanes. I swerved, hard in my throat. The baked ziti tray slid into the passenger footwell with a clang. I pulled ahead, glancing in the rear view, expecting him to slow down again. But he didn't. He followed. Close. The kind of close that fills your entire rear view with grille and headlights. His brights flicked on, blinding, and stayed there. I adjusted my mirrors, squinting to see the road ahead. My knuckles were wide on the steering wheel. At the next curve, I changed lanes. So did he. I tried speeding up, but the highway was slick and uneven. Rain pooled in shallow dips like hidden potholes, and my tires had already hydroplaned once on the drive down that afternoon. I wasn't about to push it. Still, he stayed with me. Too close. Brights still on. I couldn't tell if he was angry or messing with me, or just a reckless driver, but I felt sick. That kind of gut-deep, whole-body dread that makes you second-guess everything. Your speed, your lights, your lane changes. I flipped on my hazard lights, hoping maybe that would clue him in to back off. Instead, he honked. Long, loud, and steady. Not just a tap. Not a hey, you messed up honk. A full-blown, heavy-handed horn blast that rattled the air around me. I flinched. For the next 4 miles, he trailed me like that. Through curves and dips, past dark stretches of shoulderless road with nothing but trees and ditches on either side. I started crying without realizing I'd even started. Just silent tears dripping onto my collarbone while I kept both hands on the wheel and whispered, "Please stop. Please just pass me. But he didn't. There were no other cars. Just me, him, the rain, and miles of open, unlit highway. Eventually, we came to a passing zone. I slowed down and shifted lanes again. Tried to let him go by, begging him in my head to just leave me alone. And finally, he did. He veered into the left lane and began to pass. I glanced to my right, half expecting some grizzled old man at the wheel. Someone tired or angry, or maybe just confused. But I couldn't see him. The cab windows were tinted. Not the legal kind of tint either. The kind that looks like a sheet of black plastic. He passed slowly, like he wanted me to see the truck. Or maybe like he was waiting. When he was finally ahead of me, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I stayed back, letting the distance grow. My exit was coming up in 10 miles, and I just needed to make it that far. But then he slowed, from 60 to 50 to 40. I stayed back. I didn't want to pass again. I didn't want to be next to that cab. But when he dropped to 30 on a 65 miles per hour stretch of open highway, I didn't have a choice. So I passed again. Fast this time. My tires splashed through puddles, and I clenched the wheel so hard my fingers cramped. He let me, for a while, and then the lights came back, brighter this time, like he found a way to angle them higher, or swap bulbs or something. It was blinding, unrelenting. I was shaking now, genuinely shaking. I pulled out my phone and turned the screen brightness all the way down, swiped to camera mode, and held it near my shoulder, just in case it could catch something. Anything. A mile later, the rain lit up slightly, and I saw the outline of a gas station ahead. One of those 24-hour truck stops with diesel pumps and a Denny's built into the side. I pulled in fast, not signaling, just veered off the highway and parked right by the front entrance. A man in a reflective vest was restocking windshield washer fluid crates near the door. I saw him and breathed. I didn't get out right away. Just sat there, staring in my rearview mirror, waiting to see if the truck would follow. It didn't. It passed the station without slowing. No lights, no honks, just rolled by and disappeared into the distance like nothing happened. I waited 10 more minutes before going inside. Bought a coffee I didn't drink, used the bathroom, splashed water on my face. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Eventually, I got back in a car and finished the drive. I didn't see the red cab again. Not that night. Not since. I never told my parents. I didn't want to hear, "This is why we told you not to live alone." I didn't want to see that look in their eyes. Half worry, half, "I told you so." But I did buy a dash cam. Installed it the next week. Now, whenever I drive at night, especially past produce stands or train yards or gravel lots, I check twice for headlights. I keep my gas tank half full, and I never ignore that feeling in my stomach when something feels off. And I've never driven that route again without stopping at that same truck stop. Not because I need gas, but because I need to see someone standing outside, just in case. About 10 years ago, I flew out to visit my mom's side of the family in northern Arkansas. My cousin Lisa was getting married, and the reunion basically turned into a week-long event. It was in this tiny rural town near the Missouri border, just pine trees, winding roads, and way too many mosquitoes. Most of the family booked Airbnbs or stayed in nearby motels. But since I was coming in alone, I ended up crashing in my great aunt's house. It wasn't anything fancy, small, one story, with a screen door that never quite latched and a back porch that tilted a little to the left. Her neighbors were scattered acres apart, mostly retirees, a couple hunters, and one guy everyone just called Rick the driver. He was a long-haul trucker who lived alone in this 3-bedroom ranch-style house down the hill, kind of tucked into the trees. I'm Kevin, by the way. I didn't think much about Rick at first. I saw him once during my visit. He came by to help my aunt haul in a new propane tank. He was polite enough. Heavy-set guy, maybe in his late 50s. Sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. Called everyone kiddo, even if you were clearly pushing 40. The next day, my cousin Melissa and her boyfriend Josh showed up from Nashville. Their Airbnb had double booked, so they had nowhere to stay. We were already packed and tight, and hotels were either full or too far out. That's when Rick popped by again and offered one of his spare rooms. Said he had more space than he needed and didn't mind letting them crash for a few nights. No charge. Claimed he'd been a road ghost for decades and liked having people around when he was home. Melissa was hesitant, but Josh was all for it. "It's just for sleeping," he said. "What's the worst that could happen?" That phrase should have been a warning sign. I went with them to check the place out, mostly because I didn't trust some random trucker's definition of a clean guest room. The house from the outside was actually pretty charming. Wide front deck, wind chimes, neatly trimmed bushes. But the second we stepped inside, something was off. The smell hit first. It was sharp, like bleach and something rotten trying to cover each other up. Not unbearable, but weird. Like walking into a room right after someone sprayed air freshener to hide something. Josh barely flinched, but Melissa made a face. Rick noticed. "Sorry about the stink," he said. "I had to clean out the fridge this morning. I've been gone a couple weeks." He led us down the hall to the guest room. The layout was odd. There was a sliding glass door leading directly outside, like a side entrance. Nice view of the woods, but the room itself felt detached, almost like it wasn't meant to be part of the house. There was another door connecting to the main hallway, but it had not one, but two locks on it. A deadbolt and a padlock. From inside, Melissa asked about the locks, and Rick laughed it off. "I got cats. One of them knows how to open doors. Can't risk him sneaking in here, especially at night." They didn't explain why the locks were on the inside. It looked more like a way to keep someone in, not cats out. Josh noticed it too, but brushed it off, saying, "Some people are just weird with their pets." Still, something about that room made me uneasy. The bed was made, the floor was clean, but the smell lingered, and the windows wouldn't open. They decided to stay anyway. I didn't see much of them during the week. Melissa told me later they try to be out most of the day, hiking, eating out, helping with wedding prep. But she said every time they came back, the smell was worse. Not strong enough to cause a fuss, but just enough to keep you slightly on edge. The thing that really stuck with her was how Rick would just show up. Not in a creepy, peeking through windows way, but casually. Too casually. He'd knock once and walk in. He always had some random reason, forgot to check the heater, or just feeding the cats, but it felt more like he wanted to monitor them. She said he'd compliment her constantly, commenting on her earrings, her handwriting on the fridge note, even her socks once. It wasn't threatening, just unnerving, like someone watching too closely but pretending not to. Josh thought she was overreacting, but Melissa didn't sleep well the whole time. Said she kept waking up in the middle of the night, sure she'd heard someone at the door. When they finally left, Rick gave them a bag of trail mix and hugged them both goodbye. Melissa said it was the worst hug she'd ever received. I didn't think much about any of it after they left. Life moved on. But a few years later, I went back to visit my aunt after she had surgery. One afternoon, Rick came by while I was on the porch cleaning out her bird feeders. He was friendlier than I remembered. Told me he was getting ready to retire soon, thinking about selling the house. Then, out of nowhere, he brought up Melissa and Josh's visit. "Hey, tell your cousin I'm real sorry about how the house smelled back then," he said, without me even mentioning it. "I've cleaned it up since. Got rid of the carpets and everything. Smells like lemons now." I told him it was fine, that I'd let her know, but he kept going. "You should come see it. It's different now. Cleaner. I even fixed up the guest room." I said I was kind of busy, but he didn't drop it. Kept insisting. Said, "It'd mean a lot if you saw it. Just take a minute." My aunt, who had no filter left by that point, piped up from the screen door. "Just go humor him, Kevin. He won't let it go otherwise." So I did. The house was cleaner. Fresh paint, new furniture, some cheap-looking gym equipment in the corner. He walked me through every room, like a weird little tour. The locks were gone from the guest room door, but the cats were still there. Or at least, he said they were. I didn't see a single one this time. Before I left, he asked if I wanted a soda. I declined, said I had to get back to help with dinner. Then, not 2 months later, I heard from my cousin Jessie that Rick had tried to get her 9-year-old daughter to come over while they were visiting. Said he had a new treadmill and a special TV set up for gaming. He told her, "You can use it anytime. I'll even show you how to adjust it for your size." Jessie shut that down fast. Said the whole conversation felt loaded, even though he never said anything overtly inappropriate. Rick doesn't live there anymore. The house was sold last year. But every once in a while, I think about those locks. The smell, the overly rehearsed apologies, and how hard he tried to get people into that guest room. It was late spring in Missouri, one of those thick, gray days where the sky looks bruised and everything feels a little heavier. I just wrapped up a 3-day visit with my aunt in St. Charles and was heading back to Nashville. The trip was last minute, a kind of emotional pit stop after a messy breakup and a string of exhausting work weeks. My aunt always had this grounding presence, like a weighted blanket with a southern drawl. I didn't realize how much I needed to sit on a back porch and drink sweet tea until I got there. I left in the morning, around 8 a.m., thinking I'd make it home by late afternoon. My playlist was a mix of soft indie and old school soul. The road felt peaceful, just long stretches of open highway and the occasional gas station that looked like it hadn't changed since the 90s. My name's Sasha, by the way. Somewhere around 11 a.m., I noticed my phone was nearly dead, 2% and dropping fast. That's when I realized I'd left my charger back at my aunt's house. Rookie mistake. I still had gas in the tank though, or at least I thought I did. About 10 miles outside Columbia, my car gave this stuttering cough and then went limp. The dashboard lights flickered and then died. No beeps, no gaslight warning, just silence. I coasted to a stop just past a green sign that read, "Eastbound 54 of Oz." My first reaction wasn't fear. It was embarrassment. I passed up a gas station an hour earlier, thinking I could stretch it to the next one. There were no signs of civilization now, just trees and concrete, with no visible shoulder and a thin grass embankment sloping down into a drainage ditch. There wasn't even a decent place to walk. I stepped out, hoping to flag someone down, but for the next 10 minutes, maybe longer, the road stayed empty. No semis, no pickups, no cars. Just me, standing there in leggings and a windbreaker, feeling very alone and very stupid. That's when I heard it. A low, rumbling growl behind me. Not fast, not rushed, just slow and steady. I turned around and saw a semi easing toward me, gravel crunching beneath its tires as it pulled over. It came to a hiss stop maybe 15 feet ahead. The driver's side door creaked open, and a man stepped out. He looked to be in his 60s, balding, with a bit of a belly but tall. He wore a short-sleeved button-down tucked in a faded jeans. His boots were muddy and scuffed. There was something unnerving about his calmness, the way he moved like he had all the time in the world. His voice matched it. Low, almost gentle, but there was something off about the rhythm. "Need a lift to the next exit?" he asked. I froze. Every woman I know has been told not to do what I did next. But everything about the moment felt plausible. Daylight, no cell reception, wide open visibility. He looked like someone's uncle. A man who maybe grew up in the church, hunted on weekends, and had 3 weather apps on his phone. I told myself, it's 5 minutes. You'll get gas, a snack, maybe a charging cable, and be back on the road by lunch. I got in. He introduced himself as Don, said he was headed towards St. Louis for a long run and could swing by the truck stop just ahead. "Exit's only 5 miles, he said. "There's a Lowe's there. I'll drop you and loop back." The cab was cluttered but clean. I noticed a few wrappers, a road atlas, a bottle of water, and some peanut shells scattered in the cup holder. His phone sat face down on the dash. There was a bottle of sanitizer tucked in a side pocket, and a plastic bag hanging from the gear shift. But the back of the cab, the sleeper, was sealed off with a curtain. Not the thin kind you see in most rigs. This one was thick, dark, and heavy, like it belonged in an old movie theater. It didn't sway, didn't let any light through, just hung there like a sealed wall. Something about it felt theatrical, or staged. We drove for about 5 minutes in silence. No radio, no small talk. I looked down at my hands and tried to think of something casual to say. That's when I noticed we'd passed exit 148. I saw in the side mirror. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I think that was it. Love's right. He didn't answer, just kept his eyes locked on the road. His grip on the steering wheel was tight, knuckles bleached white. I watched the tendons in his hands twitch. "Sir," I tried again. Still nothing. The engine's hum filled the cab. I could hear it over my own breathing, which had started a hitch. And then he spoke. "You'll be fine," he said, his voice completely flat. "Just don't scream." That's when the adrenaline hit me. My mouth went dry. I looked at the door handle, calculated how fast we were going. Maybe 70, 75. I could tuck and roll. Maybe break a rib, get scraped up, but I might survive. "Pull over," I said. "I'm serious. Let me out." He didn't even blink. Instead, he took the next exit, 146, I think, and eased down a long, narrow ramp that led nowhere. No station, no lights, just a cracked road bordered by trees and silence. My heart was pounding. I started reaching for my seatbelt, but he moved before I could act. He pulled out a small pistol. Black, matte. It looked small but real. He held it low, near his thigh, angled just enough for me to see it. "I'm not gonna hurt you," he said, "unless you make me." He told me to get in the back, into the sleeper. My head was spinning. I didn't know what was behind that curtain, and I didn't want to find out. My whole body felt electric with fear, but my mind went clear, scanning for anything I could use, anything I could grab. That's when I saw it, my water bottle. It was wedged between the seats, right at my feet. Stainless steel. Full. I didn't think. I just grabbed it and slammed it into the side of his head. He cursed and jerked the wheel, and the truck swerved hard to the right. We clipped a metal road post, and the entire cab rattled like a roller coaster coming off the tracks. Before he could recover, I popped the door handle and jumped. I hit the gravel shoulder with a thud and rolled, scraping my hands, tearing my jeans, and twisting my knee. The pain was immediate, but I didn't stop. I stumbled to my feet and started running, limping, toward the main road. My lungs burned. My body screamed. But I ran. A silver SUV appeared just as I reached the highway. I waved both arms, sobbing and yelling, barely coherent. The car slowed. I threw myself against the passenger side window. An older couple, probably in their 60s, looked terrified, but they let me in. The woman called 911 while the man helped me into the back seat. I kept looking behind us, certain that Don would come after me, but he didn't. I saw the truck. It had pulled up about 100 feet back. He was reversing, not chasing, just backing away slowly. No panic, no rush, like someone erasing footsteps in the snow. 20 minutes later, troopers arrived. They questioned me on everything, took photos of my scrapes, wrote down the truck's plate, wrapped my knee and offered to call an ambulance. That night, I stayed in a roadside motel under police advice. I shoved a chair under the door handle and left every light on. 2 days later, they called. The truck had been found abandoned at a rest stop near Warrenton. Don was gone, but what they found inside the cab, it was worse than anything I imagined. 2 loaded handguns, a stun gun, rope, zip ties, duct tape, a duffel bag containing multiple pairs of women's underwear, a flash drive, a backup hard drive, and a notebook, leather-bound, fraying at the corners. Inside the notebook were names, dozens of them, first and last, cities, states, dates. Some of them had stars beside them, others were scratched out. They didn't have to tell me what that meant. And then came the part that still haunts me. They found my name, spelled wrong, but close enough. Under Columbia, Missouri. Next to it. May 23rd. The day after he picked me up. Weeks passed. I tried to return to normal, but sleep was a joke. I kept seeing the curtain, the gun. The moment his voice changed. Then a detective from Kansas City called. She asked if I'd ever stopped at a diner off I-44 during college. I had. She said a man had been frequenting that area for years, handing out free safety keychains to women, just being friendly. She thought it was Don. They're still digging through his stuff. Photos, videos, conversations. Piecing together what he might have done. How many others were in that book? How many didn't get away? I think about that water bottle a lot. How stupid it was. How lucky I was. How close I came to becoming just another date. Just another woman on a list in a stranger's truck. And how many names on that list won't get to tell their story?